Morning guys, and welcome to day 3 of my 30-day challenge. Again, it was good to see a lot of you commenting and sharing what you did yesterday. A lot of you seem to find it quite hard on the glute exercise, especially for those of you who got up to the advanced level. So I'm glad that it's obviously giving you that challenge that you want. Today we're going to stick with a similar theme in terms of strengthening key muscle groups. On day 1 we did obviously abdominal work with the planks, so the abdominals are obviously really important in terms of running and maintaining that really good running posture and obviously day-to-day posture as well. And then yesterday we were doing the glute medius, which again is important for day-to-day posture, but is also vital when running to stop that knee from collapsing inwards. Today we're going to look at another important muscle group, which is the hip flexors. So again, these are important for day-to-day life. So when we're standing, for instance, if we have got tight hip flexors, then these can pull our pelvis forward into this anteriorly tilted position, create an excessive arch of our lower back, and put more tension through that area. It's often caused by lifestyle factors as well. So for example, if you do a desk job, like a lot of us do, or if we spend a lot of time driving, then again, we're going to chronically shorten those hip flexors as we're sitting down. But also in sport, it's really important, no matter what sort of sport you do, if it involves running, because if we're doing like sprinting, or if we're involved in team sports, anything that requires quick, sharp bursts, then obviously we're going to have to bring these knees up quite high in order to stride out a bit more while we're sprinting. So these muscles obviously need to be strong. But even as a marathon runner, even if you're running for several hours, they are still very important, because a lot of runners I see running around struggle to actually be able to clear the floor because their knee height is so low, because their hip flexors are so weak. And if you think about it, you know, as an endurance athlete, how many times are you going to have to do this as part of a long run, or even, you know, your marathon? So it's important really for pretty much everyone to make sure that their hip flexors are nice and strong, particularly, as I say, if you do have a bit of a sedentary job. Now I'm going to give you a few exercises today in order to strengthen. So I'm going to be using a resistance band today. Hopefully most of you watching this have already got one, because they are tremendously useful, especially if you're starting out in strength and conditioning. And of course, with the gyms being closed, we are limited to sort of home-based exercise, so they are going to be really useful. I will be using them again at some point during the 30-day challenge, because it is very difficult to devise a completely home-based challenge without including them in some way, but I will include some alternatives that don't require the band. So for those of you, if you don't have one yet, but of course I would recommend that you do purchase one, because they are nice and cheap and as I say, very useful. So we're going to start off tying the band to something, and we want to make sure that it's not right at the bottom. We want it a little way up like that. We're going to then tie the other end to our foot, like so. And then once we've done that, we're going to lay on our back. But first of all, we need to make sure that there's a little bit of tension in the band here. We don't want it nice and loose like that. We want it not at full stretch, but with a little bit of tension already there. So we're going to lay down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick sort of technical check. So first of all, I'm going to make sure that there isn't an excessive arch in my lower back throughout this exercise. So again, we want to engage these abdominal muscles to make sure that that back is as flat on the floor as we possibly can. Okay, so the exercise is quite simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this right leg up to my right shoulder, like so. Now, a couple more technical points. We want to make sure that this lower leg doesn't drop down, like so, because we want to maintain maximum tension in the band. So don't cheat by allowing your lower leg to drop. And also, we want to bring this knee up to the shoulder rather than bringing it across the chest more like that, because if we bring it across the chest, then we're going to be favouring the glute muscles, the groin muscles instead of the glute muscles on the outside. So want to aim to bring it to that shoulder on the same side. So we're going to pause briefly at the top and then come back down. So we're going to come up, pause, and then back down. And again, as before, I want you to do these to failure. So just see how many you can manage, and obviously use a band with a resistance that is not easy and not too difficult, but challenging. So we want to be sort of realistic with it. Okay, so obviously we'll go on both sides for that one. And then I'm going to show you an alternative as well. This also requires a band, but this time I'm going to attach it around both feet, like so. And then again, I'm going to lie down, but this time I'm going to bring both feet up. And this time we also want to make sure that our knees are nicely spaced out, okay? So again, the knees want to be pointing up towards the shoulders if we can. We want to make sure that our back isn't arching, so we want to keep that core engaged. So if at any point the band starts to slack like that, it's a sign that the knees are coming in too far. And finally, of course, we want to make sure that that lower leg doesn't drop. So on this one, it's very similar, except this time you're going to be using one leg as an anchor as you exercise the other. So you'll be working basically both legs at all times. So I'm going to push down like so, maintaining good posture on the anchoring leg, and then alternate. So personally, I actually prefer this exercise because it is actually harder because you're using both sides at the same time. But of course, if you want to do them individually, then that's fine as well. So again, do it to failure, see how many you can do. And remember, my rule on failure is that failure doesn't necessarily come as the muscle is too fatigued to do it, but it does often come when the technique starts to deteriorate. So for instance, if these legs start to drop or the lower back starts to come off the floor. Now my alternative without the band is to do exactly the same as what I just did, but just without the band. So you're going to bring your legs up as before, and then you're going to come down and up, down and up. So again, you just have to make sure, because you don't have the band as a guide, you need to keep looking to make sure that those legs are far apart enough and they're not collapsing in like that. And without the band, you can still do it, but it just means that you might have to do quite a few more reps in order to get that same level of fatigue. Okay, so there are your options. Again, let me know how you get on. Share to your friends. Let's start encouraging each other, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 4.